What is the perspective of like a CEO? Hello, everyone. You're tuned in to the EO Inspire podcast series. We call it Pour Out What's Special because we pour our guests their favorite drink and they pour out their passions for us. Every entrepreneur has their story to tell, and we're here to listen and learn from their experiences. Okay, JP.
How you doing? We're here.
Cool, dude. And I really appreciate you being here. I had the pleasure of going to your racetrack.
How did you like that?
I absolutely loved it. It was really, really cool. And you were kind of teaching me how to use the car, my car, but also how to drive, I think, first.
That's right.
I actually didn't get to drive my car because you didn't feel I was ready. I think you're probably right.
We need a little bit of time. Before you let go of that car, we must take it to the track.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I look forward to going back. We'll put some footage, too, of that experience because it was awesome. And I really appreciate you doing that. And I also got to hear like a little bit about you because it was a Lala.
Yeah.
And I got to basically crash the Lala. Thank you to those guys that let me crash.
Thanks, guys, for letting him come.
letting me come.
Okay.
And you have a really cool story, man. I mean, like I said, we're doing 5 podcasts. This is the 5th one. And each podcast is corresponding.
That's a lot of pressure, man. I'm the last one. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, because it's cool.
I better bring it.
Cool is the coolest one. Cool actually is not one of the core values in Global anymore, but we decided to keep it in the Philippine chapter.
Okay.
And I think that you're a really cool dude in a really cool industry, and I think there's a lot of stuff we can learn. But before we move on about about cars and about your company and about you, can we hear more about like what you do exactly? How you got into the business?
Okay, so our company's purpose, our why, and this is important for me to start off with this, is to make dreams come true for our clients, our employees, and of course our shareholders. So I start off with that because whenever we think about doing different programs or activities for our company, we're always thinking about how it connects to people wanting to achieve their dreams, right? And our main company, our main company is a motorsports events company. So we basically teach people how to drive motorcycles or race cars at the racetrack, right? So it's all about achieving that dream of becoming that race car driver, whether it's to become a professional race car driver or to just be one for the day.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you see these, we've started with young kids, right? Mm-hmm. As young as 7, 8 years old. And it's crazy, last weekend at the races, the Formula V1 races that we build the cars and we organize the races. I had a 18-year-old driver show up, join the race, and he had just come back from 1 year of driving British Formula 4. Right?
What does that mean?
So you know F1, right?
F1, of course.
Then there's F3.
Okay.
So it looks the same, a little bit smaller, a little bit slower. And then there's a junior formula called F4. It's even smaller still, but it looks like a Formula 1 car. The point is, this 18-year-old boy who had done a year of British F4 in the middle of the pandemic had come home, joined our race series, and I saw him for the first time in, 8 years. He goes, "Oh, Tito, you remember me?" I said, "Yeah, of course." He said, "You know, I got started in motorsport at 8 years old because of you."
My God.
And this boy is, his name is Eduardo Cosateng. He's the son of Jody Cosateng, who's like a legend in motorsport in the Philippines, is going to be the next Marlon Stockinger, going towards F1.
Oh man, so he's a promising future.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I recall from your lifeline too that you yourself used to drive before you got into putting up a school and all this stuff, right?
Yeah. So I was an aspiring race car driver in my teens, and the problem is as you sort of try to follow that dream, you go as far as you can until you run out of money. And then I realized that I wanted to stay in motorsports. So how do you do that? We decided that the best way to have money coming in, not going out, by spending it in racing, is to share our passion for motorsports with those people that want to go racing. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of the premise of how we started our race school. It was a hobby. It started off as a hobby business between myself, my younger brother, and my girlfriend at the time, who luckily I married. And That was 22 years ago, dude.
That was 22 years ago. So your entire life you've been exposed to the industry, starting from being a driver towards wanting to stay in the industry. Did you ever like get like a corporate job outside of it? Did you ever do something else different before staying in that industry?
So that's a really great question. And the answer is yes. And it's not a yes because I wanted to. It was a yes because I had to. I had no money. So what happened is I was growing up as a young boy in my teens, and I was racing cars with my dad. My dad was a famous race car driver. His name was Arthur Tuason. All of you titos out there will know him.
Yeah, definitely.
So what happens was I raced cars with him. It was great. We went from go-karts to cars. We were racing in Subic. Amazing, amazing time. And then my dad dies. It was just super tragic. It happens almost overnight. And when I lost my father, we also, in the process, because of family fighting, we lost our business. So I went from having the time of my life, living in Forbes Park, racing cars, to having nothing.
Having to make money.
Having to make money, right? And having to make ends meet. And it was crazy because we weren't poor, but we were so down on our luck that, we had no house, right? I went from living in Forbes Park to living somewhere in the south. And I wanted to stay in motorsports, right? I wanted to continue my career. Mm-hmm. So how did I do that? I called all of my titos, titas, and all the friends of my dad, right? And I learned how to create sponsorship. Mm-hmm. So I was lucky enough to put together sponsorship from Shell, sponsorship from Tag Heuer, sponsorship from Alaska Milk, of all companies.
But you were raising capital, basically.
I was raising capital.
But what were you going to do with that capital?
To go racing.
Different races, to go racing, to put up
racing.
Races, to put up events, to put up the school, because there's so much stuff, right?
So at that time, I was 20 years old. I just graduated, had no money, wanted to stay in motorsport, and sort of the opportunity to take the next step up was to drive what they call single-seaters. They look like Formula One cars, but smaller and slower. But I was recruited to come and join a team, right? But I needed to come with a little bit of money. You couldn't be like totally poor and just join. So I scrambled and put all of that together, and I was able to continue my career in motorsports, racing cars, but I had to make money as well. And that's where I had to actually get a job. It was so painful, but, but I did.
What were you doing? Were you corporate? Or?
I was corporate.
Wow.
So what happened was this multinational company had come into the Philippines, and they were related to the products my dad was the importer for at the time. So I had a bit of background in those products. They were automotive paint products, so painting cars and stuff. So they recruited me, and I went to work for them.
Still related to cars in a way.
Still, of course, it has to be. And what happened was I used my dad's contacts to continue selling these products for this multinational company. And I did that for about 3.5 years.
How old are you at this point? This is after your dad passed away.
This is after my dad passed away. So I was probably about 21. So I worked with them for about 3 years till about 24 and a half.
Nice.
And at that time, I had married my girlfriend, my wife, Jeanette. And so I love you, honey. And we had 2 kids by that time. And we kind of made a decision that we didn't just want to get by, because we were just getting by, right? Mm-hmm. We wanted to either go big or go home. And what I mean by that is in 2002, we took a trip to the US. And with the last $10,000, right? That's like all the money we had, $10,000. We basically blew it all on racing schools. So she went with me, and she hung out while I was doing different racing schools all over the U.S.
Racing school's like you learning how to drive.
Yeah, I was a student.
So at this point, you were going to be a driver.
Yeah,
Training to be a driver.
I was a professional driver at that time, but our idea was to go to all these racing schools around the U.S., learn what we can, bring it home, and it would be a all or nothing kind of gamble.
So
it was either the race school, we would come back and it would fly, or we would migrate to the U.S. and I would flip burgers and she would do makeup at Macy's, right? It was that kind of situation for us. And this was in 2002. It's crazy.
Is there that, like, you know,
Insane.
a lot of actors go to like LA and they're like waitresses or waiters by day and by night. Is there that kind of thing for people that aspire to be professional drivers? Like they'd have like a day job, but like maybe at night they're like driving these fast cars or something. How does it work? Because I can imagine there's a small percentage of people that actually get to a point where they can make a career out of being a driver, right?
Okay. So the misconception about motorsports, right? And, you know, it's because everybody watches Formula One.
Yeah.
And it's such a glamorous
Which is
life.
getting so big now, by the way.
Everybody's got their own yacht. They all live in Monaco.
Yeah, very aspirational.
You know, the joke of people that are involved in motorsport is if you want to make a small fortune in motorsports, start with a big one.
Okay, I see.
And it's crazy because it looks fantastic on the outside. But on the inside, the business is actually very, very tough.
I'm sure.
So just to share with you guys, I have a friend that's involved that owns a Le Mans 24-hour team, right? They go to Le Mans, they do endurance races and stuff like that. And, you know, he's struggling to make ends meet.
Despite being a very prestigious race.
Yeah, of course. You know, they're talking about budgets of millions of dollars a year, right?
Yeah.
That's their budget to run.
My God.
But at the end of the day, they're like, how can I make this work?
How do you make it work? Is it the sponsorships that make it profitable? Is it the viewership? Like, how do you make money in that business?
I think we've been very, very lucky over the years to sort of evolve our business from just training drivers. So we started off as just a company that trains drivers on weekends, right?
Yeah.
We would take a group of guys, like what you guys did at the track, right? We take a group of guys, come to the track,
Awesome
we drive around.
experience, by the way.
And people walk away and say, hey, that was great. But how much money were they willing to pay?
Yeah.
Right? There's only so much. So over the years, we figured out that we would have to tweak that model. If we were just going to take people on weekends and charge X amount of money, it just doesn't go very far.
Yeah.
And our big break happened in 2003. So 1 year after we went all in.
Yeah, that's what I got a little bit of ahead because you went to these schools to learn how to be a professional driver, and now we're already talking about having the school. So at what point did you hang it up, or I don't know what the expression is?
Well,
and then you started putting up the school.
I was racing at the same time when we wanted to sort of run the school and professionalize it and grow it. So I was still kind of racing in the background.
So you started the school while you were still learning how to...
Sure. So on the weekends where we weren't racing, it was the race weekend for the school.
God,
right?
that's
It's
cool.
crazy.
Okay.
So the story is, it was like happening in parallel. And after coming home from the U.S. of, you know, doing a couple of weeks of training as a driver, but we weren't there to get better as a driver. We were there to study how do you teach people how to race, right, professionally. And we took that sort of curriculum, we brought it home. We went to all the different race schools, Skip Barber. We went to this Andretti Speed Lab. We went to this NASCAR experience. And the point is, when we came home, we had, you know, this super big idea of bringing home the concept of the race schools in the U.S. to the Philippines. And we had done about a year of this concept, and it hadn't gone anywhere. And my wife and I were like, man, I don't know how much longer we can continue doing this, right?
Yeah.
So in December of that first year.
This is 2000.
This is 2002. December of that first year. we started cold calling possible
sponsors,
corporate clients, car companies. The key is the car company. You have to have a car company backing you. And the week of Christmas, right? You know, nobody's answering the phone anymore. We were almost desperate, guys. It's that kind of deal. We reached out to somebody at Ford, and we had literally opened the phone book. There was still a phone book at that time, right? Yellow pages.
Yeah.
Literally a phone book. And we were like, okay, phone number, call them up. Hey, can I speak to the marketing manager? Can I have the name of the marketing manager? And they'd be like, oh, why? Click.
Call back.
Hi, can I speak to this person? And eventually, we left a message, and that person called back. And they said, hey, I heard you guys called. I heard you have a proposal. And we pitched that person on the telephone. And they said, hey, you know what? We might be interested. Why don't you touch base with us after the new year?
Wow.
And in 2003.
The next year after
The next
Christmas.
year, right. This was Christmas 2002.
Yeah.
You know, we called them on like January 4, bro. Can we call them already? Yeah, I think they're in.
In 4 days. Yeah.
So we called them up and we organized the meeting, and we started a 10-year motorsport relationship with Ford.
Wow.
And to this day, right? To this day, and it has now been. It's now been 17 years. We still work with Ford.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And that changed everything for you. Now it made the school viable.
Yes.
What about your career? At this point, you started that already before you were learning. You spent the last $10,000 you had learning from different schools. Why did you stop driving?
Well, I think it got to the point where I loved motorsports. I had been racing locally at like the top level of motorsports for a couple of years. But it had gotten to the point where it was starting to become financially not viable.
It's an expensive sport.
It was, and I guess the last straw was in 2006 or 2007. So somewhere at that time, I had gotten myself from doing entry-level single-seaters, and they were called Formula Toyotas at that time. Hopefully, I'll try to find a photo.
Yeah. I'll post it here.
And what happened was I was able to make that final jump into Formula 3. So there was a program at that time, 2004 to 2007. I was involved in something called Asian Formula 3. So it was a race series that did Thailand, Malaysia, China, Indonesia, Philippines, and there was another country. The point is Japan. And the point is we were running Formula 3 cars, and Formula 3 cars are the last step before you do F1.
Mm-hmm.
What do they look like? They look like F1 cars. How fast do they go? 250 kilometers an hour.
Jeez.
Down the straight. They have all the aerodynamics. They've got slick tires. And in 2007, I got into an accident in this car.
My God.
And
Going how fast?
The accident probably happened. We were doing about 180, something like that. It wasn't full on, right?
Yeah.
But 180 is still 180.
What happened
The point
exactly?
is,
Like the car, did you flip?
so the car in front of me, we were in a high-speed corner, and the car in front of me span out. He lost control, and there was nowhere to go, so I went into him, right? But the point is, I was okay. I had a small injury.
Was there fire?
No, there was no fire in that accident, but there was more than enough damage on that car that that one accident was about 1.5 million peso.
It's an expensive sport, man.
Right. So to repair the car, it was 1.5 million peso. And in 2007, when you have no money, you're like, man, that's it, right? And I was married at that time, and I had 2 kids.
And also at that point, the school is obviously has that partnership with Ford. You're already
It was just starting to sort of gain traction, right?
Yeah.
So at that time, my wife and she said to me, honey, I love that you are living out your dream, but it's time to buy a house. and that was it. That was it.
Probably the right decision, yeah.
That was my first retirement out of motorsport.
Why did you say first retirement? Did you get back in there?
I did. She allowed me to get back in a couple of years later when we had a bit more money. And we'll get to that in a second. But that was sort of my first realization that we really had to concentrate on the business, because it would either grow or we would also have to just call it a day, because it was going well, but it hadn't scaled properly yet, right?
I understand.
So we were making money. We were not, before we had a car manufacturer, we weren't profitable.
Yeah.
We would make money, but it would just be enough to make ends meet, right?
Yeah, I get it.
So now we were making a bit of money, but it wasn't enough to really have any explosive growth.
Yeah.
So the idea there was you either continue racing and you can have a great time, or
you specialize.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you focus on the business, you can grow it.
Yeah.
And we just said, we have to grow this business.
And it might be more scalable too.
That's right.
F1 is becoming huge.
It is. I mean, I'll tell you what it is, right?
Huge.
You know what has saved F1? Netflix has, before the Drive to Survive series, the viewership for F1 was going down.
Ah.
And the reason for this is when you watch the races, you see the same guys winning over and over again, right?
Lewis
It's
Hamilton.
it's Verstappen, whatever, right? And what Netflix has done is it has given focus on the character of the midfield and the backfield guys, who are probably as talented as the guys in front.
But people like champions.
I know.
People like Tiger Woods. Like Tiger Woods is great for golf.
Sure.
They're like champions.
But
Lewis Hamilton's done a lot for the sport, I think.
But do you know who is the most popular team in F1 today?
Hamilton's team, Mercedes. No?
Okay, so I'll give you a second guess.
Who is Schumacher?
No. Okay, so you think the most popular team
think of the big
is Mercedes?
Yeah, Mercedes.
Who would you think is the second best?
Porsche.
No, for F1.
Driver or?
No, team. Team. We're talking about team.
Oh, Red Bull. So
okay,
you
Red
mentioned,
Bull,
yeah.
right? Who would be the third?
I would think Ferrari or Porsche or like.
The most popular team in Formula One today is McLaren.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Isn't Mercedes own McLaren? No. They have some kind of
McLaren
partnership.
is Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo. They are the most popular Formula One team. Not driver, but
Team, yeah.
And it's because of Netflix.
Ah.
It's fucking insane, dude. So I have these mugs. I'm going to send you one. I'm going to get them next week. They have racing
Oh, I
quotes
like
on
that.
them.
What's behind you doesn't matter. In order to finish first, you have to finish. Don't fear failure. Fear not having the chance. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. I like that.
And it's because we our race series
Beautiful.
is called Formula V1 Race Challenge.
Now this is the
car we build.
That's the car you build.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So you saw them racing, right? You saw
I
them
did, yeah.
practicing. Yeah. So that was the race last weekend.
Dude, how much do those cars cost?
Okay. So those cars.
How much is Lewis Hamilton's car?
Wow. A Formula One car chassis, to build a chassis, is probably about close to $20 million.
Jeez, that's just the chassis.
That's just the chassis. That
Why?
doesn't include the engine.
There's just so much R&D
It's all
that
carbon
goes into
fiber and R&D, and all the parts that go into that are like made once or twice, right?
Yeah.
They make one and then they make like a spare, and then that's it.
Oh my gosh.
So everything is bespoke. It's like having a bespoke suit, right?
Yeah,
just
it's
made
like
for
completely
you.
personal.
So they make them. They only make 2 of them a year, and then they make spares. That's it.
So a crash would be pretty devastating on the books.
That's why you see it in the in the videos, right? When somebody crashes, everybody's like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think people really want to see the crashes. Sadly,
of course,
it's horrible, but like that's what people want to see.
That is the action, right?
Yeah, that's the action.
Okay. So where
okay, so I want to talk. We talked a lot about F1 and about how cars work. Yeah. I think what this podcast is about the theme of being cool. And I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have many passions. I have many passions myself, but we don't necessarily follow our passion. And so when we come across someone like you who gets to pursue your passion happens to be something really freaking cool. It's like, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs that maybe they want to pursue their passion, but maybe they don't think they can make a career out of it, you know? Is it worth it in the end?
Okay.
Could you see yourself doing anything else if it made you more money, for example?
Okay, so great questions, and I'll tell you guys, all of my friends in EO, right? I battle with the question of how much is enough all the time.
We had this talk during your Lala.
And the reason why I have this question is, you know, you work so hard, right? And sometimes you're on that hamster wheel, it's just going around and around. You don't know whether you're really making a dent in what you're doing. And the point is, you could be doing other things, right? Spending time with family, going on vacation. But no, you focus on your business. So everybody looks at our business and they're like, God, you guys are so lucky.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Seems very glamorous to me.
Dude, it's been 22 years.
Yeah.
Freaking hardship. Then the first 10 years, right, was a super struggle.
But dude, like, I go into your office, you have a view of the track, and you hear these cars whizzing by it, like over 200 kilometers an hour. It seems like a pretty cool office to me.
It's cool, but again, the struggle to get from where we started to where we were cool. So this bar is bigger than my office when we first started. My office when we first started was probably 3 meters by 4 meters.
Is this 2002?
This was in 2000, right? 2000, 2001. My office was a 12 square meter room where half of it was a mezzanine. So if you stood up, you would bump your head. Dude, it was me, my wife, and my brother literally for years. And so the question is, would you tell other entrepreneurs to follow their passion?
If Ford didn't come through in 2002,
dude,
would you still be at it somehow? Would there still be some other way of you finding?
If I didn't land a corporate client in 2003, a car company, I would probably would have struggled another year, maximum 2 years, and then I probably would have said, you know, this is not going to work out. I'm going to have to call it a day. And it's because I had a kid at the time, right? I mean, I had bills to pay, right?
Of course.
I'm like, I got to make this work. And it was about sheer luck. It was also about perseverance. We just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And like I said, it was the week of Christmas. We were still calling people, right? And, you know, 3 days after the New Year, we were calling them back. It was that kind of situation for us. We wanted to make it work. So what people see today, and when they say, God, you guys are so lucky, it was really because we wanted to make it work. It was the passion, it was the fire. And do we still have that? We do. But of course, nowadays, as an entrepreneur, we think about things like legacy. What do you pass on? And because none of my kids at the moment are race car drivers, this is probably not a business I can pass on. So I'm trying to develop something else. I'm involved in real estate. I think one of the interesting things that has happened is instead of buying the Porsche 15 years ago, I waited. And I took all of the money that we made and I always invested. And in the last 10 years, we've been very lucky to be involved in the real estate space.
Yeah.
So now I can afford the Porsche Turbo, and I'm happy about it. And hopefully we're developing a business that we can pass on.
Yeah. No, that's a great lesson. It's all about passion, perseverance, and I think also that it's not always going to be glamorous. Like you said at the beginning, it took time to get to where you're at.
So for all of my EO friends out there, right, and my wife says this all the time. We were the type of entrepreneurs where at the beginning of our journey, right, we're involved in events, right? And events, you have to have branding and you have to put up these tarpaulins of your sponsors, whatever. Mm-hmm. Dude, we were the guys that were there at midnight tying those tarpaulins to fences and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So we've gotten to the point where we know that if you tell me that, oh, sir, we can't put up the tarpaulin, I'm like, dude, I was the one that was tying that. What are you talking about?
You can do it.
I know it, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at is if you have the passion, you're willing to really put in the hard work, I think you can make
it work.
Your passion work.
Yeah.
You can, if you really want to, but you really have to want it.
Yeah.
And that's why at the start of this discussion, I started with the why, because that has always been our purpose.
Mm-hmm. To make dreams come true.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I completely agree with that. Okay, last question, okay? This whole theme is about cool. I think you've displayed already to the audience as well as myself that you're a cool dude. But like, what do you think it means to be cool, and why is it important for entrepreneurs?
Okay, so that's a great question. And I think I'm lucky that I am in a industry where being cool kind of just, it's part of the overall package.
Mm-hmm. Almost some marketing there too, right?
It is, right? Yeah. It has to be. It's funny, and I'll be very honest with all of you guys out there. I have a lot of self-doubt.
Doesn't show.
I think twice about a lot of the things that I do, and I think that if I were in a different situation, being cool would be difficult. I also think that that sometimes trying to be cool becomes a facade which is necessary in certain businesses. Mm-hmm. And it's not really who you are.
Yeah.
So
would you say that being cool is more linked to being passionate?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're being honest about what you're really passionate about,
that's the coolest thing you can do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what people perceive you as, right, in terms of, oh, this guy's super cool and stuff like that, it just becomes sort of like a offshoot of just showing your passion about what you're doing, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's all about.
I do too, dude. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think even if you weren't in cars, which is a cool industry, I would still think you're a really cool guy because you're extremely passionate. And I think that's the big learning here.
Thank you very much. I love you.
Thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this. And this is the last one, so maybe we'll do another series in the future. But until then, thank you guys for tuning in.
Cheers.
Thank you, JP, man. Awesome discussion. Thank you. Goodbye.